Hello and welcome to this week's What Were They Thinking? The first story is regarding the mass death of puffins in Alaska. The island of St. Paul, just off the coast of Alaska, has citizens that work closely with researchers in the environmental sciences. Recently, they found a large number of puffins, particularly the tufted puffin, that have died on the island over the winter months. This in and of itself would not be unusual, as winter is a time of sparse food. A problem lies in the sudden and drastic increase in the number of bodies found. The birds' bodies were emaciated and their flight muscles lacked strength to get them in the air. The 360 birds found over the last couple of years are just the evidence that has been found, and modelling indicates that there are at least 3,000 birds that have perished due to starvation, and possibly up to 8,500. Events like these are often caused by an increase in local ocean temperatures that affect the abundance of zooplankton. It is further compounded by more severe and more frequent winter storms. These have created a cascading series of events that have only further reinforced the deprecation of the number of birds in the area. While birds are dying, an anaconda in the US has managed to engage in parthenogenesis by impregnating herself. The anaconda, named Anna, is held at the New England Aquarium. She is just under 14 kilograms, 8-year-old, and 3-meter long anaconda that had given birth to a litter of baby snakes. The important part here is that she was housed in an exhibit designed to only have female anacondas. Despite this, she gave birth to 3 children. Before announcing this, the aquarium staff had to confirm there was no history or possible contact with the male, and then later sent DNA samples off for testing. After receiving the results, they confirmed that in fact all the offspring were clones via parthenogenesis. In similar sorts of cellular news, scientists observe the complex messaging system between cells for the first time ever. As you would know, cells need to communicate between each other in order to ensure function. This could be the relative simplicity of heart cells beating in unison, muscle cells contracting, or as complex as the immune system, where multiple cell types need to communicate and exchange information. One means of communication is called calcium ion channels, and these act as intracellular messages. They are especially common in smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and skeletal muscle. Calcium ions are used for this purpose as they are relatively readily available and easily controlled through those ion channels. As a result, they are used for a number of different purposes, not the least of which is cell death, growth, and other indicators that, unless readily restricted and controlled, could prove to be a problem for the cell's function. The researchers believe there is a system of things they call nanocourses that control where the calcium ions go to. These are flexible and can adapt to different situations. For example, there may be variations on its configuration to allow for gene expression when released. Once the gene function is no longer required, it can be reconfigured to stop the expression of that gene. While some researchers are busily looking into the role of calcium, others are looking into how cells divide. The process of cell division has been known since the early days of biology. What we have not had to date is ready access to tools that allow you to explore the various components at the different stages of cell division. One group has a website which is called the Integrated Mitotic Stem Cell. It allows you to examine up to 15 different parts of the cell at 5 different stages of stem cell division, together or individually. This gives you a greater degree of refinement and way to demonstrate exactly what's happening in a cell, particularly if you are either an educator or a researcher trying to better understand a topic. This could be very relevant if your model is based on a immortal cell line such as the HeLa cells. This project uses healthy stem cells to try and demonstrate cell division. In further cellular news, there is a possible new discovery of a hybrid immune cell that is linked to type 1 diabetes. This cell could possibly be what causes insulin-producing cells to be attacked. This rogue cell, now named the X cell, is a hybrid of B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes, primary workhorses of the adaptive immune system. Type 1 diabetes effectively makes someone dependent on external sources of insulin, as their own cells have been attacked by the immune system and destroyed. Type 1 diabetes is effectively an autoimmune disease. B and T cells are distinct parts of the immune system, and they are kept separate, partially to ensure better serviceability and adaptation, but also to ensure better regulation. This hybrid cell contains both the B cell receptor and the T cell receptor. These would normally help to identify and target antigens. Having them within one immune cell results in its ability to target the self quite easily and then attack it. These X cells do this very well as they have a receptor that can bind very tightly to the insulin and as a consequence can train the immune system to attack the pancreatic cells that produce insulin. In other news, there has been a new development of a method to give thermal stabilization to viral vaccines. As you can imagine, vaccines are somewhat delicate. They need to be kept refrigerated and are being transported frozen. Stabilizing them has been a long sought after target to ensure vaccines can be transported effectively, cheaply, and easily, especially to those places that do not have ready access. The new method uses a form of sugar film that reduces the cost and allows for easy transport. Enveloping a vaccine for either the herpes simplex virus or the influenza A virus in a pullulan and trehalose mixture resulted in the vaccine retaining its efficacy for at least 2 months at 40 degrees centigrade. It retained its immunogenicity for 3 months at the same temperature. This is a relatively simple approach, but it has huge implications for the transport and availability of vaccines, especially in areas such as Saharan Africa. In another bit of interesting news, there was a recent tweet exploring the relationship between vaccines, information, and how they are discussed on Twitter as a platform. It examined 16.6 million vaccine-related tweets. What these people concluded is what many others have found. Twitter creates an echo chamber where there is a very small number of people making constant reference to the same material to reiterate their own belief. For example, of the top 10 websites cited, the very first is to Natural News, 4 are to specific articles, and the anti-vaxxer movie Vaxxed. When you consider this in the context of the recent news from Facebook in which they targeted pregnant women with anti-vaxxer ads, and the crackdown by YouTube on anti-vaxxer and other conspiracy theories, the echo chamber that is Twitter is somewhat disconcerting. If you were considering natural therapies, then the next case study may give you reason to pause and consider the benefit for a moment. Homeopathy has induced severe alcoholic hepatitis. The case study follows a person who rarely if ever drinks alcohol, or at least that's what they thought, as did their surrounding family when questioned about the patient's alcohol consumption. What they found was that the patient was consuming a homeopathic remedy for their Gilbert syndrome. Upon testing it, they found that this concoction had 18% ethanol. This is about half the strength of a spirit, about 150% the strength of a wine, and about 4.5 times that of a standard beer. And they were consuming this on a regular basis, whilst under the impression that they were not drinking any alcohol at all. It was discovered only following a liver biopsy, which revealed features of severe alcoholic hepatitis. Yet this case study does not demonstrate a lack of communication by the practitioner, a lack of knowledge by the customer, and the clear danger of an unregulated treatment, then further questions need to be asked. In some astronomical news, Hawking's theory about radiation has just received a significant boost in its credibility. A lab-created analogue of the black hole provides evidence that Hawking's radiation is both a real thing and how it may work in reality. It's understood that a black hole is inescapable, not even light can get away with it, light being the fastest thing in the universe. If it cannot get away, then how does the radiation do so? A 2016 demonstration found that when two phonons in the model used were able to get entangled, one would be propelled away from the black hole and one would be propelled into the black hole. That is phonons as in sound, not photons as in light, as this model used ultra-cold rubidium. In fact, it's only marginally above absolute zero. They then used sound waves to figure out whether or not the black hole would swallow all of the sound or if some would escape. The original 2016 work was seen as a statistical anomaly, and the newest publication for it has found that their method of detecting an absolutely minuscule change in temperature is a very novel, very exacting and clever device. It only further cements that their original findings were correct, and this further supports the idea that Hawking's radiation is a real thing. Going from space back to Earth, there's been some organic matter found in 3.3 billion-year-old rocks. That indicates life was brought to Earth to a certain extent from space. The samples have been found in South Africa's Makonwa Mountains. This is an area home to some of the oldest rocks on the planet. The evidence for this consists of a 2 mm thick rock layer with two anomalous signals. These are insoluble organic matter. The first of these is carbonaceous chondrites that are from meteorites known to contain organic compounds. The second anomalous signal consists of nanoparticles made from nickel, chromium, and iron, things not usually seen in terrestrial rock formations. In combination with the first signal, this makes a strong argument for an extraterrestrial origin. Hopefully future research will yield more light on it. In somewhat related news, the Philippines government is in the process of passing a bill that requires all students on completion of their current level of education to plant 10 trees before they can graduate. This would require elementary, high school, and university students to do so before they could graduate. That is 12 million students within elementary school, 5 million students from high school, and 500,000 from university each year. If done properly, it would ensure at least 175 million new trees will be planted every year. Given that the Philippines is currently experiencing massive issues with deforestation, this would be a strong counter to it. This is an interesting pro-environmental choice from the Philippine government, and whilst it is yet to pass their Senate, following from last week's surprising Chinese rocket failure, this week there is footage of a lightning striking a Russian Soyuz rocket in mid-launch. despite having been hit by lightning, the rocket successfully lifted off to deliver its payload. Russia reports that its launch equipment is designed with this sort of event in mind. The lightning could have, as in the past, caused considerable damage to the electronics and function of the rocket. Fortunately, their preparations, and ones that other countries have adopted since, avoided that issue. In tech-related news, an Australian teenager has been found guilty of hacking into Apple not once but twice. This is all the more impressive given Australia's poor internet capacity. The teen was motivated to do so, believing that if he was able to gain access to Apple's internal systems, that they would offer him a job. Being 13 at the time, this kind of optimistic thinking could be understood. As the Australian hacker was a youth when they were found to have done this, they were sentenced within the children's court, and as a consequence were given a relatively lenient sentence. This involved a $500 bond and a good behaviour agreement that would last 9 months. The judge observed that he is clearly someone who is a gifted individual when it comes to information technology. That being said, those who have this advantage of being gifted does not give them the right to abuse that gift. In related technology news, Samsung has developed a very disconcerting AI that can develop a talking head from a single image. This raises further concerns about the deepfake problems. To no one's surprise, in a collaboration between the Samsung AI Center and the Skolkovo Institute of Science and Technology, they have developed a means of taking an image from different angles, or even a single angle, and developing a talking head that is a head with moving jaws and facial expressions. One of their more compelling examples is that using the Mona Lisa. The technology is driven by neural networks and training them to be able to use specific landmarks on the human face. This then allows it to move and manipulate the facial expression to match with the desired outcome. This is technology that could be used in recreating scenes from movies or inserting actors into scenes when they have died in years past. Adding further to your fears of technology is this most recent art exhibit. A laptop with 6 of the most damaging and dangerous viruses from the start of the 21st century has gone on sale under the name Persistence of Chaos. It's classified as an art exhibit by the internet artist Guo Odong. The artist has installed 6 particularly nasty pieces of work. The first being I Love You Worm, the second is the So Big from 2003, then there's My Doom from 2004, Black Energy from 2007, Dark Tequila in 2013, and the most recent that you might be familiar with, The WannaCry from 2017. All of these have been installed on a 10.2-inch Samsung laptop running Windows XP. If you really need a Windows XP key, you could have had this one for just over $1.3 million. Although sold as an art exhibit, the laptop is effectively a carrier of some of the most destructive pieces of work in hacking over the last few years. The laptop itself is air-gapped, which means there is no physical connection between it and the internet. The Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and other communication features have also largely been shut down. This is effectively a form of quarantine to prevent any of the malicious code from within it getting out, unless you are foolish enough to either connect it to your network or put a USB into it. The final news this week is that on the 28th of May 2019, the World Health Organization has declared burnout an occupational disease. This is somewhat controversial, as burnout is considered part and parcel of many jobs. to describe it as an occupational disease is perhaps a little extreme. It is included in the 11th revision of the International Clarification of Disease, otherwise known as the ICD-11. It has not been classified as a medical condition. This classification is part of the World Health Organization's push to develop health and evidence-based guidelines for mental well-being in the workplace. Thank you for watching this video. If you have found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions below.